Welcome back to What Obstacles? My name is Christina. This is week 2 of Intro to Parkour. Last week we covered a lot of basics. We did the quadrupedal movement, the strides, sloth hang, cat hang, forward roll, and step vault. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. Please hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell icon so that you get updated as soon as we upload the next video. All right, let's get started. All right, next up we have our tack. Some people call it a tic-tac, a wall run, a wall step. There's lots of terms for this particular skill. There's also lots of things you can do with this particular skill. I'm gonna show you on this angled wall. Now, this is, again, a progression. Once we get to the higher levels, we would be doing this on a flat surface. But as we are practicing, I would absolutely do it on an angled wall, or if you can put a box mat up against a wall to create an angle, absolutely that could work as well. The angle just helps the kids train with this skill so that when they do progress to the flat wall, it is a little bit of an easier transition. So the first step I would do with this one is I would get some sort of box mat and put it in front of the kids. So to start off, I'd have a box mat in front of the kids just to start with this one. What it's going to feel like off of the wall is it's going to feel like you take a step on, say, a staircase or a box mat. I push up and down. That's it. But there is a step into it. Push with this leg, push and down. Once we get to the wall, the kids are going to want to immediately kick it. The reason I'm doing it this way is to get them in the mindset of pushing off of the wall first, then we get to this wall over here. So I would do this drill with them a couple times. I would get them all with a foot jump up, okay? I can also do a step tuck with one leg, okay? Driving this knee up. That will help with their wall run as well, okay? Not necessarily just the tack. But this is a good progression for them just to get started. Okay, moving on now to this wall. So now we're on to this wall. If you don't have access to anything to make an angle, absolutely you can do these progressions on a flat surface. In the past, I have also put a crash mat against the wall. That way, as their foot goes against it, they have a little bit of an extra second to grab with their toe and push off. It also helps the kids whose foot slips down the wall. Just a little bit of an extra tip. Reminder, you are going to see the kids kick the wall with this one. We don't want to kick, we want to absorb and step out of it. So, I absorbed into it and I pushed off. The other problem you're going to run into is that their foot is going to be too low and it's going to slide down and they're going to do this. If you notice, when I'm doing this, my foot is just about as high as my hip is on the wall. Somewhere between your knee and your hip. But remember, you are taller than your athletes. If you are putting a marker on the wall, make sure you measure it to your athlete's height. If they are only this big, then make sure your marker is farther down. So that was the tack. You're looking for that knee bend and push off with the power. We are not looking for a striking motion or an extended leg against the wall. We are looking for bend and stretch. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to leave a comment below and I'd be happy to help you out as much as possible. All right, next up we have a bar center, so come on over.
Waste another day, eyes on my display. You say we need a change.
All right, moving on to bar center. So if you are more of an experienced coach and you've coached bars before, you probably should just skip ahead to the next center. This is more so if you have never coached bars before, just a couple pointers on how to teach a long hang swing. So for long hang swing, for my intro kids, I do expect them by the end of the session to at least be able to swing 3 to 5 times without falling off. I'm not necessarily going to teach them a regrip depending on how far along they are as an athlete. This is week 2. I'm probably not even going to think about a regrip. unless I have a kid who's already been in the program a long time, they're comfortable on bars and they need more of a challenge. All I'm looking for is I'm looking for a straight, nice swing, landing behind me. One important note that I do want to point out for this is that in parkour, it's very easy to get excited about doing swings and prees and everything like that. Keep in mind, these guys are little. This is also a really good note to think about even as you're teaching older kids who are new to the sport or at least new to moving their body these types of ways. One mistake I see a lot of coaches doing is they're already starting to tell them to dismount forward. The reason we don't want to do this is because their bodies are not ready to dismount forward yet. They're barely able to hang on the bar for that long. If they dismount forward at an uncontrolled angle, they're going to fall back and they're going to fracture their wrist because they're going to land with their hands behind them. Keep in mind your age of your athlete. This one is really important. This bar is a perfect height for me. It's nice and high. Even if I was a beginner, my toes are barely off the ground in my full long hang swing. I am not in any danger of hurting myself if I fall off. If your athletes are much smaller than you, keep that in mind. Have them raise their hands above their head. How high are their fingers? Add about this much to it. That's as high as you should introduce a bar hang on your first few weeks of your centers. So what am I asking of my athletes? I'm asking them to try and get 3 swings. Forward and backwards is 1, forward and backwards is 2, forward and backwards is 3, landing in a motorcycle landing. All right, yes, that is gymnastics, but it is a nice, solid and controlled landing. It gives them an idea of what should my body be doing. It should look like it's riding a motorcycle. There's nothing wrong with incorporating those basic dominant movement patterns like a landing into this parkour, even though it is usually attributed to a gymnastics center. So when you're setting this up, remember, how tall is your athlete? Do I have a suitable landing surface underneath the bar in case they do fall? And as you are demonstrating it, demonstrate landing behind the bar. As the weeks progress, we are going to try and incorporate a little tiny bit of a swing to precision going forwards, but only if your athletes are ready. Please do not incorporate it in your first few weeks of the progressions because their bodies are just not ready for it yet. That was our bar center for this week. Moving on to our floor strides and precisions progression. Let's jump over to the other side of the gym and I'll show you that one. I've got a premonition. I'm dreaming you and I on my darkest fears. Welcome to the gymnastics side of our gym. I decided to bring you on over here so that I could show you a longer stretch of our strides, because the next thing that I set up for my kids is strides to a pre. So what that means is I'm striding along whatever the lines or the spots that I have, and I'm precision stopping myself before I fall into something, okay? It's all about control of your movement. The reason I have a cheese mat set up here is because that is what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying not to touch it. So what I'm trying to do with this setup is I'm trying to use my strides on the floor to finish with the cheese mat right here. The reason I'm doing it this way is to give them a visual of what I don't want them to hit. Okay? I don't want them to touch the cheese mat. I want them to land on, okay, the line moved when I landed on it, but what I want them to do is I want them to land on that white line right before the cheese mat and precision stop their body. So strides along the blue lines and stop on the white lines. It's all about control with this one, okay? It's about speed on your strides, but control on your landing. Be able to stop yourself. Keep in mind, these kids are little, okay? It's gonna be really fun to run full speed into that crash mat. That's why it's there, just in case they overshoot it. Back over to the parkour side for our next skill. Come on over. Whew, almost done. All right, so last week when I talked about doing the quadrupedal movement side to side, I did talk about adding a ground Kong. So just a refresh, a ground Kong is when we jump 2 hands, then 2 feet going in a forward motion. It is not a frog jump. It is 2 hands and 2 feet. Today we are going to take it one step further. We are going to do a jump down to a Kong out. This is just another option if you're jumping down off of something and maybe you don't necessarily need to do a shoulder roll for safety, but you do need to do something or else you're going to take that whole brunt of that impact into your ankles and your knees, and you don't want to do that. So what we're going to work on with this skill is as we jump off and we land on the floor, we are already transferring our motion to our hands and going to Kong out. So the brunt of that force is not all landing on our ankles, it is actually being transferred into our hands as well. So it's a lot less strenuous on our ankles and our knees. So I'm going to start off with just a red block onto a sting mat. Again, because we are doing this with kids. We are not doing this with grown adults. We don't need to have such a high jump. We need to have a jump that is a proper height for training for our little guys here. My first step is I'm going to sit on the box. I'm going to jump my 2 hands and my 2 feet just so that my kids remember what our Kong out is. So again, 2 hands, 2 feet going forward. Now I'm going to start on my feet again. 2 hands, 2 feet. Up next is doing it from a jump. So we're standing on something that is not very high. It is appropriate for the height of your athlete. It is just a small jump. This skill is not about the jump. It is about learning how to already fall forward as we are doing the skill. So as I land, what I'm looking for in my athletes is to not see a straight body motorcycle landing. That would mean that they are taking the brunt of their impact onto their ankles and their knees. What I'm looking for is an angle. As they land, they're already falling forward into that Kong out. So that was our Kong out. Just a reminder, this is not one that I would be doing from a high surface. These are Intro to Parkour kids. It is their 2nd week only. We're going to be doing this off of a lower level, okay? If I'm wanting to add excitement to my week, I might do a gradual up to a higher level and then gradual down and then expect a Kong out. So say that would be like a pyramid of box mats or something like that. They can still go up high, but I'm going to gradually bring them down before I expect them to do a Kong out. I'm going to add these heights safely. I do find this is sometimes overlooked when people are training or teaching skills as a safety landing opportunity. Sometimes I do see really large jumps where athletes are just taking the brunt of that landing. The more they do that, the more there's going to be long-term damage on your knees and your ankles. So I do always suggest to my kids that they Kong out. The more I add it into my circuits, the more I add it into my centers, the more they're going to remember to do it subconsciously so that when they are practicing at higher levels, they already know how to do that, and I've set them up for success. This week with our cat hangs, we're going to progress just a little bit farther. So with week 1, we just added a simple cat hang. Not too many kids are going to be able to jump straight to that cat hang or go into it any other way other than just climbing onto the wall. This week, we're going to introduce a small jump. I'm going to let my kids demonstrate this one. As we are jumping into it, we are reaching with our hands and our feet at the same time. Keep in mind, these guys are little. Most likely, they are not going to hold on the first time. So as I'm doing these centers, it's important to know what your landing surface is underneath of that. So if they're jumping to a wall or if they're jumping to a vault, what are they jumping off of? Are they jumping off of something soft or are they jumping off of something hard? If they end up landing on their bum and falling backwards, we don't want them hitting their head on something hard. What I would suggest, if you can make it happen, is simply jumping off of a line. Have a line or a spot on the floor that they have to jump to the wall or to the vault from. This way that if they do end up falling down and rolling backwards or whatever it is, they're not going to hit their head on anything. Another progression that I will add to a cat hang on anywhere between week 2 and week 4, depending on how advanced my athletes are, is a traveling cat hang. So that would be somewhere where they are holding onto a wall and they are traveling their hands across the wall. They don't necessarily have to have their feet against the wall in this progression. They can hang straight. As they progress farther, I will be expecting more of them with their feet up on that wall as they travel. But again, if I'm only instructing younger athletes, I'm not going to be expecting that level of strength right off the bat. This is just something that I'm going to incorporate to make the cat hang a little bit more interesting as I incorporate it into the circuit, not necessarily just a climb up and hang center. All right, we made it. That was week 2. Just a heads up, I am posting extra content on my Instagram page, so if you're interested in game ideas or setup ideas or warm-up ideas, anything like that, I'm going to be posting a lot of extra content on there throughout the week in between my weekly videos. So if you don't already, follow me on Instagram at whatobstacles. Week 3 is a little bit more of a review of skills that we've learned in week 1 and week 2. So what I'll probably do is I'll show you a few more of the setup ideas on how you can link certain skills together. And then in week 4 to week 6, we incorporate some new skills as well. As we progress closer to week 10, that's when we start getting into the introduction to recreational parkour. And just a reminder, after these 10 weeks, I'm going to be coming out with a 10-week session of recreational parkour. So stay tuned for that. If you don't already, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications for when we upload a new video. Thank you so much for following my channel. I really appreciate the support. And again, if you have any questions on any of the skills I'm coaching or any different setup ideas on the skills or how you can do it, feel free to leave me a comment below and I'm happy to help any way I possibly can. Until next week, I'll see you guys real soon. Bye.